So one thing that I'd like to clarify. So would you like to take the questions in between, or whether you would like to
anytime. In between
in the
lecture,
end?
I'll take, after the lecture, I'll take. So whenever they feel to ask questions, they can ask questions. I'll guide them. No problem.
Okay, right. So good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Rather, it's just 12 p.m. We will begin with our session 5 of this FDP, and we have Dr. R.N. Sankwa, a very renowned person in the area of water resources. So before we move to the session, I'd like to introduce you with Dr. R.N. Sankwa. So Dr. Sankwa is presently working as a chief engineer in National Water Development Agency under Ministry of Jal Shakti, Government of India. He belongs to 1990 batch of UPSC Engineering Services. He has obtained his BTech honors in civil engineering from NIT Rourkela.
Actually, one student parents in front of me, and totally took the advice.
Sorry for the interruption. Subsequently, he obtained his master's and PhD from IIT Roorkee. He has contributed 182 papers in international journals and conferences and national journals and conferences, and also has completed 18 technical studies in the area of remote sensing and GIS. During his tenure as the director of National Water Academy, Pune, he guided 7 PhD theses and 30 master's theses. He has delivered numerous lectures in the area of water resources in different institutes. He has completed many projects in the area, particularly in the area of river basins. He has authored 4 books. He is also the recipient of Bharat Sikha Rathan Award, Indira Gandhi Sadbhavna Award, Achievers Excellence Award, and Rashtra Rathan Award, among others. His area of specialization is spatial modeling, IT and hydro informatics, fluvial hydraulics, and hydrological and hydraulic modeling, which he has used more than 100 software packages. He is a fellow of the Institute of Engineers India. He is also a life member of professional societies like Indian Society of Technical Education. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Sankwa, who will deliver a talk on geomatics in agriculture and natural environment. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning to all. So good afternoon to all. So let me start sharing this slide. Just one sec. So I'm just sharing. Okay. Sorry. Now is it visible to you?
Sir, right now it is not here.
Okay. It's okay?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
So it's visible. My figure is also visible. My voice is also audible. All are all right?
Yes, sir. The slides are visible. You are audible, but your video is not coming. So can you please turn on the video as well?
Yeah, just one sec. Video, how it is off? I don't know exactly. It has become off. How come?
So besides the mute button, there is
Yeah,
video.
that is also that's not highlighted. That's crossed already. So I don't know why. So it's so. Or from your side, anything is missing or voice?
Okay,
because this is not highlighted. This is gray color. Others are white color. This is gray color. So.
Sir, have you logged in with 2 devices?
No, not too bad. It's okay now. Now it's visible. So once I close that, is visible. See?
Okay, yeah, but now, sir, your presentation is not coming yet.
Yeah, that's what the presentation I'm loading now. Just wait one sec. What happens to that? I don't know exactly. Once I load it, that goes out. Now everything is visible.
So again, the presentation is there, but video is not coming.
That means whenever I turn on the presentation, that video goes out. What can be done in this? So what can I do? See, whenever I'm turning on the presentation, that goes out.
Yeah.
Anyway, so my figure is not important. So figure important, that is video. Your this thing lecture PPT. It will all right, or shall I? What can I do for that?
No, it is all right, sir. In the meantime, if I can fix something from here, I don't think I can do anything about it. But if I can fix it, I'll try to fix it.
Once lecture over, so I'll be coming, because that will close. Then I'll come to that, right?
Yeah, sure, sir.
Okay, so let me start it. So all are ready now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So good afternoon to all. So I deem it a pleasant task to be called upon to talk on this webinar on the topic that is geomatics in agriculture, and to some extent that is natural environment, because the vast topic. So I'll be covering whatever possible within 2 hours time. So I wish to first of all express my appreciation to you all and to you, the entire members of this gathering, for this opportunity. So now you know that GIS has taken the center stage. Approach the topic at the backdrop, GIS applications through assisting the farmers in increasing production, reducing costs, and providing an effective means of managing land resources. GIS has become an increasingly invaluable resource. And every now and then, people in engineering, in science field, also in practical fields, we use GIS. GIS means maybe in part of remote sensing, some part of geomatics, some part of GIS, some part of drone technology, some part of robotics. We really use in field, in preparation of DPRs, in preparation on in execution of these projects and all that. Its application come in a variety of forms. In agriculture particularly, including precision farming, drone and satellite technologies, and the capability of GIS are many. So there are innumerable sort of things. GIS applications in agriculture examines the way that this powerful technology can help the farmers, particularly in their farming operations, and also they can produce greater evidence of crops with more efficiency and at lower costs. Farming is getting smarter with the availability of the advanced technology. So with in addition to the precision equipment, with Internet of Things, because you are all from engineering background or professional fields, so you know these things well. Sensors and actuators. Actuators means those who are actuating mechanical sort of devices connected with this automation sort of thing. Geoposition systems, big data, and some aerial vehicles, and robots also. Now, the use of precision GPS by farmers has become an essential tool in the agriculture industry. The technology has many cost-saving. The technology has many cost-saving and productivity advantages for the farmers, as well as benefits to the community and the environment. A key example in this, we can cite that being in use in fertilizing the crops, where machine sensors gather information about the crops, and the GPS records the exact position is applied in field. In preparation DPR also, we take the satellite drones, particular drones, and using drones we prepare maps, 3D maps, contours, then cross sections, longitudinal sections we prepare in field. This GIS technology aids to the application of fertilizer also in the fields, agricultural fields, because while doing the DPR preparation also we map the agricultural fields, and that not only to the areas where it is needed, but also to the areas where the agriculture has not reached, that is uncultivable areas. So this can vary the rate of application to the target nutrient deficient size also. Before that we can plan. So this saves money. This means GIS, geomatics saves money on fertilizer products, as well as the environment, from the over application and runoff into local streams and rivers. So one question I will ask before that. So in this lecture particularly, I'll be taking a bit of introduction. After introduction, we will be discussing about what are the uses of GIS in agriculture, what are the uses of GPS in agriculture, how this agrophysical and chemical analysis are carried out, how crop analysis using GIS can be done, how pest analysis using GIS can be done, precision farming through GIS, how this can be achieved, and crop acreage estimation can be done by GIS, but how it is, and GIS in telematics and robotics. In addition to this also, I am covering this GIS in environment because GIS is so vast subject. Slides are more than 350. So I'll be restricted to say 80, 90, whatever time permits within that time. So within this GIS and agriculture environment, I have around 300 some 50 slides. So within that will be restricted to main slides and I'll skip others. Now in this, if I ask you that why you need GPS and GIS in your farm or at your farm, you know that agricultural management is an important element needed for successful farming. And to enhance this farming, we go for automation sort of thing, we go for GIS sort of thing, we go for use of GIS from remote areas so that where this place is inaccessible. However, in most of the uses, the farmers do not get it right when it comes to use the right strategies to manage their own farms or fields. Often there are many challenges that farmers face in the farm management decisions. This is attributable to the fact that the environment is changing more often by implying some of the strategies that is used in the past. The farm or management or the field management are no longer useful nowadays. We need to go for developmental areas using the drone and satellite sort of thing. The modern farming requires that you use the right crops and equipment in areas where they can be best used for a chance to get optimum yield and benefits. Spatial technology can help you, that is geomatics can help you in assignment of these right resources where they are needed, and we can use that for optimal gains. With the right resource in place, we are assured of high seasonal production as well as better profits and benefits. Why this is? Because these spatial technologies have features for the optimization of the farm operations as well as logistics to help you in cutting down the costs associated with the acquisition of transport, labor, seeds which you put in the field, fuel and fertilizer. Moreover, spatial technologies are useful in help that you avoid unnecessary and expensive maintenance repairs as they help you to track and manage all farm equipment and assets. This makes it easy to operate at our farm level so that we can achieve peak efficiency. Geomatics can analyze the soil data combined with this historical farming practices. Also, it can analyze the crop data. It can analyze this crop yields so that we can determine what are the best crops to plant, where they should go, and how to maintain soil nutrition levels to the best benefit of the plants. And nowadays, many of the organizations that are using GIS systems, you talk of Jain irrigation system, you talk of this Minister of Jal Shakti, you talk of this Minister of Agriculture or Department of Agriculture. So those areas, they use this GIS. So when you talk of why geomatics or GIS in agriculture, we have many folds of answers. The first one, we can increase the fertility. The ways I'm discussing in these lectures, so you can get to know that. Second one is reduction of soil degradation. While soil degrading from farmland, we can reduce the soil degradation. Soil erosion can be controlled in the agricultural fields. So that GIS helps. Increase in productivity and quality of product also. Increase in optimization and automation of production, because some of the times whenever the fields are infertile or going towards infertile, that time we can go for optimization of the areas where we can have our crops and different types of crops. What type of crops, sites suitability and crop suitability also can be done through GIS. I'll be showing this slide too. We did it in this Maharashtra area. So how did you use that? I'll show that. And automation of production also is used through GIS. And finally, reducing the cost and risks. So using GIS, you can reduce the costs and this as well. So when you talk of this why GIS in agriculture, the simple fact is that some analytical functions such as calculation of the sizes of areas, acreage calculation, that you can get through GIS better way. visualization of spatial data, even also conjunction with non-spatial data. When the distribution of agricultural open spaces in a city or in any rural area you do, so GIS is very much used. These are the potential for updating the digital maps in the future and extension to a greater range of topics and players. When you do in DPR preparations or FR preparations in field, what we do, we map these command areas. So the command areas are inaccessible by human beings in all the areas of India. So what we do, we use GIS for mapping the command areas or the new areas which will be cultivable using GIS. Also, the possibility to print hard copy maps showing any desired selection of areas in any scale. So with the farmers, with these administrators, we do that using GIS. Unless you have a GIS map, unless you have a GPS in hand, you cannot talk with people with sufficient database or information. We can have a linkage of vector data, that is map data, with attribute data, that means whoever is holding the farms, what is his household income, what is his income, what are his family size, what is his other attributes. So what are the crops he's growing, and how many numbers of farmers in this village. Those type of data we get using GIS also. So in this, it is highly flexible. When you have GIS maps at hand, you have information. That is, we can make data-driven models. We can make plain models. We can make these numerical models. And sometimes we resort to these hydrological models in accordance to the GIS data and information. So according to the respective local context and available data sources, which you get from GIS, a wide variety of spatial data, that is geometric data, can be integrated and combined for optimal outcomes. We use satellite imageries, the imageries taken by the drone, the aerial photography, that may be our AutoCAD maps like analog maps, or digital maps like remote sense maps, topographic or thematic maps, with all scales, with Survey of India maps and GPS measurements. We do extend our help to others. When you go for public hearing after DPR preparation is complete, that's the main part of DPR acceptance. So this clearance from MOTA, Ministry of Tribal Affairs, and also environment clearance, we go for these maps and we prepare a public hearing note, and with the note we attach these maps to show the farmers and local people who are stakeholders of this area, basin or sub-basin or the river linking projects. So this possibility of data overlay in order to investigate relations with various relevant factors also do that. We have designated land use. This land is for agriculture. This land is for supplying water. This is our water body. These are village. These are township. So these are your these religious places. All these things combined together when you prepare the DPR, we have the information in hand because of GIS and GPS. Now, if you talk of this applications of GIS in agriculture, there are many. Rather, you can take party, it will be hundreds in numbers. So when you take this satellite imagery and put into GIS format later on, so we do go for NDVI analysis. What is NDVI? That's normalized difference vegetation index. That gives many things. I'm talking of some of the indices in this lecture, where we're using this from satellite imageries, which will allow these growers of this crop to go for better crops, and you can detect the anomalies of crops. With this help of this space images or satellite images, users can monitor the seed coverage and germination types and germination places, vegetation rate of growth, crop stress, and sometimes you can do this photosynthesis levels in plants and other crop details. So now, if you talk details of application of GIS in agriculture, I have gone with broader areas where you can see that how the GIS, GPS, and these can be used. So now, before going to the application of GIS, let me talk about this. What are the benefits that from this geomatics you can get it from? The GIS or geomatics or spatial technology that offers you a wide range of applications for effective and successful management of farm. So some are, suppose I say that use of spatial technologies help you to effectively use the different variables in planting to achieve the maximum yields. We use this geomatics to have this reliable information to help you in crop forecasting and effective planning. And with this technology also, what you can do, we will be able to map the individualized variations within the farm for a better understanding of the crops and appropriate in the given area, and from visual pictures of your ideal operations also in the farm. These technologies also give you a platform to learn the behavior of the animals and insects for the purpose of the effective planning of the crops and the assessment measures for the mitigation of pests and how they affect your farm operations. These also help you in combination of crop and pest data for weather informations. Also, we get weather information using GIS from satellite imageries. And overall, if you special technology is used in the best way, so we can determine what type of crops to plant, what is the best area to farm, and so that we can get best yields and maximum profits. So GIS applications in agriculture has been playing an increasingly important role in crop production, crop yield, by helping farmers and common all those things. Now, we'll be coming to these application areas of GIS in agriculture. The first one is crop yield production and crop analysis. What do you mean by that? When you talk of crop yield production, that means that accurate yield prediction can help the public, the stakeholders, to ensure good food security and businesses to forecast the profits and plan budgets. Because some of the agro business is there, because you know that one of the MBA programs is there, that is agro business management. So those people, they help, they get this crop yield prediction using their GIS data and to get the benefits and have their budgets planned beforehand. The recent development of technology of this geomatics uses this artificial intelligence, also big data. So computer science engineers or computer science professionals, they help us in this good ways to do that. Also, sometimes what you do, we use this artificial intelligence in the means of forms of neural network, that is ConvNet. I'm showing that in the next slide. So in this ConvNet, we use this current neural networks and RBN radial basis functions to predict what type of crop it will be producing and how much we can give this give the crop, give the benefits. Those things we can we have certain algorithms for that. So in this case, we can have the crop yield prediction and crop analysis. Next is that crop health monitoring. In crop health monitoring, what we do, we can check the crop health across multiple areas manually. So that is very tedious and cumbersome. So for that, geomatics and remote sensing with combined with GIS, so that comes in rescue. So started images and input information can be paired to assess the environmental conditions across the field. Suppose, for example, you go for air temperature, you go for surface conditions, you go for this humidity, and others also you can get it from remote sensing. So based on this, GIS precision farming can upgrade such an assessment and can help you decide which crops require more attention. So crop health can be monitored. And a more sophisticated approach uses imaging sensors, that is we get from satellites, and air vehicles, that means aircrafts or drones, to check the temperature of the crops. Because we have this temperature sensors, we get the sensing data from these crops so that you can get those. When the temperature is above the normal, this might indicate a disease or infestation or insufficient irrigation. So this type of ideas we can gain from GIS or remote sensing approaches. Next is the livestock monitoring. In livestock monitoring, so this is the simplest application of farm GIS software. We have this software. I'm showing that which software used for GIS farming. There are plenty of numbers of GIS software, but still, which is free of cost available in the market, and that you can see that how to use that. So now in animal husbandry, so we use GIS software for tracking and movement of the specific animals, the cows, bullocks, and other things. This helps the farmers find them on a farm and monitor their health, fertility, and nutrition. GIS services that allow you to do this compromise trackers installed in animals sometimes, but in India it's not practiced so far, but in other countries, advanced countries, they have installed these trackers in the animals in the legs or their ears and all that, so that the mobile devices can receive the visualize information from these trackers. So that's easier to do that. Suppose you want to monitor the weight of your beef, say cattle. Here though I should not use that word, but still, suppose you want to monitor that cattle something. So we can have a tracker on the ear and neck, as I said, and every time it steps on the digital scale, the scales read the ID of that animal, and we can find out the tracking. That can be done also in advanced stages, but now we have not done in India so far. There are also more interesting images that GIS can be used, or GIS software can be used. So let's suppose this encounters of one animal with others in the farm, and there's elephants coming out, in particular in Odisha district, elephants, like elephants, they come and this damage the crops. So these sort of things can be traced by your tracking system using drones or the satellite images also, those are low flying. So these type of ideas you can get from this livestock monitoring, that is application of GIS in agriculture. Then is pests of irrigation control. How much irrigation to be applied in the field? We have the controller, which this controller can be controlled using artificial intelligence, which is also linked to GIS. That means, suppose you have 1 acre of say 100 hectares, in 1,100 hectares, you cannot go to the field and see that how much area is irrigated and what is the tail end depth or what is the head end depth. So for that, we use artificial intelligence. So in that, we control the irrigation control. That means we have this sensors. If you, those of some of maybe agriculture side, so they must be seeing that this field sensors are there where you put it in the field. That can tell you how much depth the moisture is there, how much depth the water has been penetrated, so that this system can give the data to this control room, where you can see that at what area of this your farmland of 100 hectares have been irrigated, and at the tail end, so how much depth is there, at the head end, how much depth is there. Even doing this irrigation sort of field, we do this the irrigation control using this controlling technology. So the Narmada control canal, if you see this canal automation thing, you can see that we have these sort of systems for finding out the stressors or these moisture control devices, so that we can find the irrigation control using GIS and artificial intelligence. Next is insect and pest control. In this insect and pest control, those it seems a very hard term, a difficult term how to use GIS in it, but it's very easy to track. So use this pest and insect using GIS. So here, the invasion of the harmful insect and pests also. So this always you know that they do heavy damage. So here we use AI with GIS. What do you do? We use neural network and train it for the deep learning algorithms, and through this training, we feed this neural network images of the infested land, so that they are getting trained. The network learns to find the sample that indicate the infestation. So after that, what we do? We feed it with satellite images of that land we want to analyze, and we can also use remote sensing along with the geospatial technology in agriculture to check the temperature of the crop. So temperature in association with this data, satellite data, can help us to get this infested in the insect prone areas or this infested areas in hitting up, so that we can use this what I can say, we can use this the dusters, crop dusters, so that pest can be applied on that. Besides that, also we have this flooding, erosion and drought control. In flooding, erosion and drought control, what we do? GIS in agriculture can be amalgamated together to prevent, assess and mitigate the negative impact that disturbs natural phenomena sometimes. So beforehand, we know that how to get to save that. To identify the flood susceptible areas, we can use the flood inventory mapping technique, and we need to collect data such as these past floods, the field surveys and satellite images. And using this data to create a data set to train the neural networks to spot and map flood risks, we can also create an ultimate disaster management tool by which crops can be saved. Further, we use this OSLE equation. OSLE equation means this universal soil health equation with GIS and remote sensing. And we can run the satellite images through the spectral analysis to check these OSLE factors. That is, there are 6 factors in OSLE, you must be knowing in BTech level probably, and verify those images with field observations. As a result, we can create a map of featuring the levels of deterioration of the soil across the field, so that soil erosion can be mapped. So this last point is your farming automation. Farming automation also in precision farming, how GIS is helpful, how robotics is helpful, how telemetrics is helpful with GIS, so that we can get the best out of the best things, so that our agriculture benefited, we get more benefits and all those things. Now I'll show one small movie to you. In this movie, just this is some of the boys say.
They are different. The soil may be different a little bit. The sun which is being received by that field, part of the field may be different. The slope may be different. So there is varying factors to enhance productivity, quality, and yield. The term also involves minimizing pests and diseases through spatially targeted application of precise amount of pesticides, taking ecological factors into account. So what exactly is precision agriculture and how is it different from traditional farming?
The traditional agriculture where everything has started, this is actually from experience handed over. Technology has also improved, so they started with animals in the beginning, they built up machines.
Soil may be different a little bit. The sun which is being received by that field, part of the field may be different. The slope may be different. So there is varying factors across sectors, varying across the taking ecological factors into account.
So what exactly is precision agriculture and how is it different from traditional farming? Thing has started. This is actually from experience handed over. Technology has also improved, so they started with animals in the beginning, they built up machines, tractors, and so on, and then they realized another level of productivity in agriculture.
Precision farming is a farming management concept based on observing and responding to intra-field variations. It relies on new technologies like satellite imagery. So you have 20 hectares and you are getting 100 tons per hectare of yield. A remote sensing image of your field shows the difference between the yield in various parts of the same ground. Areas marked in red show the yield of 20 tons per hectare, while areas marked in blue show yield of 120 tons per hectare, a difference of 100 tons. Or in other words, not optimizing yield from these 100 tons is leading to loss in productivity. Crop better. Sensors in field measure the moisture content and temperature of the soil and surrounding air. Satellites and robotic drones provide farmers with real-time images when or where to plant a particular crop. But remote sensing and drones play an important role in precise location of problems, optimizing resources, and maximizing yield. This is of your land rather than using it in the entire farm, thus saving your money, resource, and time. Geospatial science has a major role to play in securing both food and nutritional security in agricultural systems. Geospatial
Oh. So now I was talking of that. We can talk of this this farming automation in addition to GIS. What farming automation does in this? So whenever before going to this modeling of soil for the crop fields, so I'll just talk of this for a few minutes. The seeding machines and intelligent irrigation systems. The seeding machines, intelligent irrigation systems, the driverless harvesters and weed remover robots. Now, for the future use, you can use that. We can also equip each of our machines with the sophisticated sensors, and also we can make it a part of our integral GIS system. So GIS and farming can provide precise maps, including all necessary information about the crops and field. Maps like those are called task maps or application maps. We can prepare that, and smart machines can use them in the fields to get more of benefits. So suppose citing an example I tell, so how the GIS solution for agriculture might work. Once a GIS system has detected weed infestation, it assigns a weeding immediate level to the area. The weed remover robot reads this level and places this area on its list of tasks or list of tasks. So apart from providing the signals for machines, task maps can help unskilled workers do their job more efficiently. So now these are automation in the farm level. So in the modeling part of soil for crop field, our next part, how to do that. So GIS, how it is used. Say we have 5 layers. We have one irrigation layer, that means showing the drains. We have a soil treatment layer. We have a crop yield layer. We have soil type layer. We have terrain layer. So when all the layers are superimposed on one another to get the information of that, we can have the GIS helpful in determining how the soil type, fertilizer application, and water affect the crop yield. So because we have all the layers with us, so applying this modeling technique, we can find that how much crop will be yielded by this particular area by this particular crop. So soil fertility also we can map using this soil texture in the field. So soil fertility map also we have a layer, and this nutrient management also how to put this nutrients. Also we have the management plan. From that also we can make a layer. So we can use this GIS in addition to all the layers to find out how this modeling for soil for crop yield can be there. So as I was using that, how a neural network is used to get this crop yield map, we have this figure. We have a plain map of the area getting from this South of India or your cadastral map. On that, we will superimpose the remote sensing data or GIS from that. And we have different bands. So any band you take or combination of bands you take. So we put into a convolutional neural network, either RNN or this radial basis neural network. Then through modeling, because beforehand we have trained this model before modeling, and after that we'll get the crop yield map. So crop yield map can be provided by using GIS and ANN or any artificial intelligence software development machine or any machine learning packages to get the crop yield map. So that means GIS helps us. Without GIS, we cannot, or without remote sensing data, we cannot put in this neural network, because neural network will not be helpful in the big areas because we do not have that particular signatures. So remote sensing will give the signatures to get that idea, so that crop yield map can be prepared. So also what GPS can do in agriculture, we have different things like you can give the tractor guidance. If you go for automation farms, it can guide the tractors which way it will move. Generally, tractors we provide the compass and compass GPS, small GPS, handheld GPS, you put it in the tractor. So that will give the idea where the tractor can move and all that. We can have soil sampling. We can have this yield monitoring. We can have this livestock tracking that I told earlier. And I was just telling that the pest spraying, that is crop duster targeting. That means in which areas, as I showed the movie to you, that is a drone sort of technology, they are crop dustering. The crop duster means dusting the crops with these pesticides. That is a crop duster. So where the crop duster will be targeted, it's not that all the entire field will be going for crop dustering. So we'll be putting the crop duster in the particular areas where that is infested. So using that, we can use the GPS. So GPS will help you in giving it this locations, latitude, longitude, so that we can spray this dust, this crops with this drones and all that. So what will be the further merits of GPS in agriculture? So we have already known that GIS is helpful, but at the same time also GPS can be helpful, as I showed in the previous slide. In this case, we can have the reduction in cost, we can have increased yields, and also we can minimize the environmental impacts using GPS. Because cost reduction means in all the areas we don't have to go for dust spraying, we don't have to go for treatment in all the areas which is infected or infested. In these areas we will be putting this. An additional benefit for using GPS will be the precision agriculture, because precision agriculture means this is very precise because of the latitude, longitude, location. That means location, this coordinates of this area you can easily get using the GPS. So this will help us by using this GPS technology to get more benefits. Also, this can operate at night. GPS also can operate at night at lower manpower cost and increase the machine utilization. So cost is an important factor in this crop productions, and because it's immediate impact along with this increased yields you can get. So this GPS also can give the precise measurements with precise applications. This reduces leaching and runoff into the ground. We can track the leaching also where it is, and we can have the drainage measures and all that. And we can have the surface water due to unnecessary chemicals and fertilizers can be traced because of this GPS application and all that. So this is helpful. So another part, we can have this crop management. In the crop management, what do you do? So this means that a group of agricultural practices that is used for betterment of this growth of these crops can be used. We can have soil management, we can have pest management using the GIS, we can have the seed and planting materials, we can have this water management and cropping statistics, and different types of crops and different positions, development stages can be mapped using GIS. We have 4 stages, three stages, initial stage, mature stage, harvesting stage. In these 3 stages, we can have these cropping strategies so that we can plan accordingly when to have what. And also in the last stage, we can have this modern this pollination techniques. So nowadays in the modern countries, these advanced countries, they have this modern pollination techniques. So how to help the pollination take place in a modern way using this drone and GIS can also be done using GPS technologies. So that is crop management part. Next, we need to have this agri-informatics. So what is agri-informatics? If you have information, so information about the crops you can have. So before that, GIS can give you the information about the crops, so that after getting the information about the crops, we can have better things. That means agriculture informatics is an important emerging practice in the domain of agriculture. And this GIS technology can be helpful in the agricultural activities, ranging from getting the information, having the documentation, and technology related aspects. Also, at the same time, also, this is dedicated to the ICT practices, internet communication practices in agriculture, which are also being used nowadays. You must have heard about the hydroponics. Hydroponics uses the latest techniques in agriculture, where also GIS can play its major role and GPS can play its major role. Now, other allied areas also, including the horticulture and environmental sciences, also use this GIS and GPS. Further, so this GIS is applicable in modernization of the things and capacity building and development agriculture activities, leading to further productions and future productions in a better way. So in this agri-informatics, we have to know about the weather forecast beforehand, how it is done, so that IMD is helping us in that way. Also, we have this media range weather forecast and daily, so that also helps us in giving this forecast and all that. And also it can give the idea about the forecast and the actual area zone and the stage of the production and what the production stage, conditions of the crops and anomaly of these productions. Those things it can give us. And actual rainfall also it can give us. That is also through GIS and GPS and remote sensing that is given by IMD. And weather forecasting, though the farmers do not do that, but relying on the weather forecasting, we can use the GIS in a better way. And crop vigor can be also mapped using remote sensing satellites. And this pest diseases infrastructures like the residual moisture that can also measured using GIS and this GPS technology. And we have different sources. We have this optical sensors, we have the sounders, we have field this equipment, we have expert knowledges, we have this synthetic aperture radar, all those things. We have many types of sensors which give us the idea about this crops and crop statistics, crop yields, crop vigor, and all those things. Using those things, what you can do? Just I'm giving one this example of this MODI satellite. MODI satellite is nothing but modern digital imaging spectrometer. So what it uses, it has Terra and Aqua, the sensors on board. So Terra passes to north to south across the equator, and Aqua passes to south to north over the equator in the afternoon. So this is designed for the land, atmosphere, ocean, and cryosphere observations. So particularly we use this several algorithm, that is surface energy balance algorithm, for lands, particularly for calculation of evapotranspiration, that IS Bangalore and NRSC Hyderabad do these same things using this MODI satellite and other satellites. This has a swath about 2.33 kilometers and spatial resolution about 250, 501 kilometers and 250 meters, 500 meters and 1 kilometers. Temporal coverage is about 2 times per day. So this is having a good temporal coverage, and we have different special bands. We have 36 bands MODI is having. So in the 36 band, we have visual band, that is red, blue, or infrared, or near an NIR or MIR. So these bands are helpful in tracking these crops and all that, and finding this evapotranspiration, how these crops are using that. So generally, we have these products MODI's 9, 11, 12, 13, 43, and 15, 16. So we mostly use this mod 15 for evapotranspiration, that is calculation. Other things like albedo. Albedo means reflected temperature from the Earth's surface, also calculated by mod 43. NDVI you calculate by mod 13, and we have mod 12 by land coverage. We have surface filters by mod 9, and mod 11 use this land surface temperature and emissivity. And at some time also we calculate leaf area index. That means how much canopy coverage over the area there in the crop area there, that you calculate using this started images. So that is one of the examples. How to calculate the actual ETA from the fields. This is the flow diagram I can show you. The Sentinel satellite images are there. So we can have the albedo, you have emissivity, fraction of HP power, NDVI calculation. Having all the things, use this Segal's method and finally calculate this actual HTs. This is available from data from NATE. You can track this analysis of site and you can find how this actual HT is calculated using the satellite images. Now we have this GPS, we have remote sensing of robotics and GIS. What they do basically, now you have heard the basics of that, but now remote sensing, this imagery, that helps in current and past conditions of the crops. GPS that helps you positioning the field where you can have specific management practices implemented, and also robotics can help you. In addition to GIS, it can help you to fly controllers to collect the field data and can give us idea about this site-specific management practices in GIS. And GIS can give you the relationship with the crop yield and the farm input factors. Suppose nutrient maps, for example, it can generate this where this pest has been applied, and so that you can have better management plans for the crops. So you can go back. That means we have GPS, remote sensing, robotics, and GIS that helps in a bigger way to help this crop productivity and other things. Now, what do you do with the preparation of the data? We prepare the initial data. First thing, we measure this boundaries of the farmland or the agricultural land from its contours, and we go for agrophysical and agrochemical analysis. What this does, also in the next slide, and we go for agro audit. Agro audit means how much crop will be there, how much yield will be there, what crop type will be there, and what type of soil will be there, what land leveling type is there, what is the elevation of the land. All those things you can get from agro audit. At the same time, also we can have an optimization plan in sort of thing to have this arable land and crop rotation. The same land of or piece of land is not given the same crop. Rather, we insist on crop rotation so that we can get more of croppage out of the land. So we can have this compilation of digital maps, and we can get more of information. We can get about idea about soil fertility from GIS map, and we can have one agro technological planning so that optimization of the things can be done in a better way. And also we can have mechanized farming, so that mechanized farming, in addition to the GIS, GPS technology, can give you better idea and better crop yield, better benefit, and much more satisfaction in the field of agriculture. Now in this figure, if you see that we have field preparation, we have podding. Podding means what it is, this plowing sort of thing to the lesser depth. We have transplantation, we have vegetation sort of thing, we have peak vegetation, that means the development stage. So we have the agricultural crop growth. That time we can have heading types. That means while before maturity there's heading types. Then final harvesting, that's maturity period. So this type of idea we can get from this remote maps or remote images. So you suppose, for example, we are having the rice, water, urban, these things. So we are plotting it there. So this temporal backscattering profile of this image, so of any field, rice or non-rice areas, can be plotted either a graph form. And left side, you are using this A, B, C, D like this. These are image areas of this rice and non-rice areas, from which we can have this ideal information from the satellite images. Besides that, as I was telling that, the agrophysical analysis and agrochemical analysis can be done. In agrophysical analysis, what we do, suppose this is a piece of land. In this piece of land, we can have generation of the relief maps. What are the elements of this map? What are the forms on the map? That means what areas is there, or along slopes, what is the 3% or 5% slopes are there? What are the area quantity? In the 3% or 5% slope, what are the crops grown? And by shapes, by different shapes also you can have the distinctions. And also this by expositions. Suppose we want to find out where is the rice crop source. So GIS can show these are the areas where rice crop is grown. Similarly, we can have the relief microforms in the small lands or the small sub farmings and subplots. What you can do, we can have this relief microform. That means relief microforms means the elevation of this farm plot you can assess through your GIS and GPS, or using the drones by contour tracing and all that. By using that, what you can do, suppose you want to have a say a sprinkler system. So where the sprinkler can be placed so that that can irrigate more of the areas. So by this relief information from GIS, we can have this soil cover structure. From structure analysis of this soil from GIS, we can have this soil cover structure. Also, we can have this semi-hydromorphic and hydromorphic of soils. That means the soils which grow in the soils are in the presence of excess water. So that also can be planned through GIS. and also where the eroded soil, as I told about Australia, all those things we can use that. And also we can have agro-physical land types. So which physical land types are suitable for which type of crop can be assessed using GIS. That means, for example, black cotton soil is good for your cottons. Black cotton soil is good for your cottons. On your orange, this is black cotton soil. So likewise, you can have this clay areas suitable for your rice plants. So likewise, we have agro-physical land types which can be also identified using the GIS. Similarly, we can have this agrochemical analysis. In this agrochemical analysis, what do you do? We can have this nutrient content of soils depending structures from GIS map, from classification of expert classification or supervised classification of the area of these fields. We can find this humus content, nutrient content, and also any micro element is present of there. That means weeds or other things are present of there. That also can be found out using GIS, tones and all that. So agro-environmental lands also can be identified. Also agriculture, cultivable land and uncultivable lands, cultivated lands and uncultivated land, uncultured lands, cultural lands can also be identified using the signature of the cropland by using GIS. Besides that, also this map can be prepared using GIS, that is which is wheat cultivation, which is rice cultivation, which is your fruit cultivation. Those sort of things of crop growing can also be identified using GIS. So now you are seeing this agrochemical analysis can help us in a variety of ways how much nutrient can be applied to the soil which is already partially having nutrients or humus content. So those sort of ideas can also be derived from GIS analysis. Now, if you see the spectral signature of this soil, wet soil, and this, suppose for example, I'm putting up earlier, you have this type of crops. For different types of crops, we have these spectral signatures. These spectral signatures is the reflectance strength. Then is a wavelength below the x-axis and y-axis you have reflectance. If this is plotted, that gives you wet soil like this blue sort of thing. Green that you are seeing the dry soil. So barley or any other crop that is like this. So this gives us idea where we can have the type of crop planted in which area. So this spectral signature gives us these band values or digital numbers. Using that analysis, we can find out the type of crops and the acreage. Now in this area, if you see, this retrieval of agrometeorological parameters using satellite dimensions can also be done like this. So here I have used for this albedo. Albedo means reflected temperature from that. So now the surface albedo is estimated by remote sensing measurements, so covering the optical spectral bands. So this image will analyzing that this is Landsat TM thematic mapper map, where surface temperature can be also measured because of their tones, and the reflectance can be also measured by that wavelength values and all that. Reflectance of reflected wavelength values. So once you know the surface albedo of these plants and all those things, so that gives us idea what type of crop. That means whether the crop is in vigor, less vigor, or more vigor, or this albedo quantity and quality we can also measure using this remote sensing images. At the same time, also signatures can also be collected for different stages of crop development, as you're saying now. So they are starting from the podding or flowering or maximum podding or the harvesting period. So these will give you the idea about this plant growth, how much plant has been grown and what type of growth is there. So that also can be seen, and which area is having the crop vigor or crop stress. So that also can be found out using this signatures that is generated from this crop development. That is left side, you can see the images which will tell us about this crop patterns and signatures which are collected from the different stages of crop development, so that we can have idea that which area of the crop has been grown to a better one, which area of the crop has not grown to a better one. So starting from podding to this, starting of the podding to the podding stage and harvesting stage. Besides that, as I said many times, that crop condition assessment can also be done. That means when the chlorophylls is there, so the chlorophylls are mapped by using remote sensing satellite images. So healthy vegetation contains large quantities of chlorophyll, so which can be mapped. And also reflectance in blue and red parts of the spectrum of the wavelength also can be measured because the chlorophyll absorbs energy. In contrast to this, also reflectance the green and near band in spectralisms also can be measured when it's high. And also stress and damaged crops experience decrease in chlorophyll content. So because of this, we can also have internal leaf structure. Leaf structure gives us idea about this crop condition. And the reduction in the chlorophyll content that decrease in the reflectance also can be studied. and the NIR band, and this gives us idea about the crop condition. So these reductions in green and this NIR or IR reflectance provide us the early detection of the stress, so that we can plan further, we can apply this crop management practices over there, and we can have better crops if you detect early symptoms of this. Okay, the foliage in this leaves of the crops also can be examined. At the same time, also we can examine the ratio of the reflected infrared to the ray reflect, that is NDVI measurement, NDVI and EFI, that is just VI, then EFI, EVI, those things I'm talking about later. So these things we can find out. So the NDVI, when you have healthy plants, will have high NDVI because of the high reflectance in NIR wavelength. So no low reflectance in the rays. So this can be measured by this satellite images. Irrigated crops, if they're bright green in the real colored simulated images, and this colored infrared simulated images where infrared reflection is displayed in red. So healthy vegetation appears bright red. So when you see these images of NRSC or satellite images, generally a healthy vegetation are appearing red, that is in the false color composite. Once you convert into natural colors, you get the green color. Otherwise, it looks very red, bright red color. Areas of consistently healthy and vigorous crop also, we can see that that appears uniform bright. At the same time, also we can see the stress vegetation, which will appear as dark and the brighter healthy and crop areas, or it will look like yellow when you convert into natural colors. Now, as I was saying about this NDVI calculation, we do by using this formula, that is near NIR minus red by NIR plus red band, and ranges from -1 to +1. So that again we rescale it. We can use for grass, we can use for crops, we can use for rice, any sort of thing we can just use that. So now, finding that NDVI, that will tell us that what is the reflectance values and what type of reflectance in the blue band, green band, red band, or NIR bands. From that, we can have idea about this type of crops, vigor and type of crops it is going over there. Now, if you see this nitrogen applications or any fertilizer application to the field, what can you see in this? In this, you can see that the nitrogen application for this minimum fertilizer to average to maximum fertilizer applications in bare soil. And if you plot the graph, we can have NDVI values reducing further and further and further. So maximum limit of this NDVI will be reducing if you apply more of fertilizers. If less of fertilizers, it will be having maximum more number of values. So here in one. So from -1 to +1, you can judge what type of fertilizer has been applied in the field from these satellite images. Okay. Now, based on indices, we have also leaf area index. That means what is the leaf area? Leaf means the canopy area over this thing we can also calculate using GIS, using green band, red band, and NIR reflectances. We can use this leaf area index to calculate how much canopy cover is there. So here, the bare soil how much is looking or bare soil is not looking. These sort of things can be decided depending upon the leaf area index values. Sometimes also other investigations also can be conducted to assess the crop characteristics, the biomass coverage, and also by means of these combinations of the reflectance or digital values in the various spectral bands, we can calculate or we can investigate and analyze the things, which type of crop, what type of crop, what is the crop bigger, and all those things. So this combination of the reflectance values, Bayes index, or these things can help us, and this will serve to correct the undesirable influence of varying soil reflectances or atmosphere circumstances on the result of the crops, so that you can take precautionary measures of the crops to grow better. We can also identify, we can calculate the areas, acreage that is, and also we can monitor. What is that? The climate and soil conditions, that is coupled with the specialized management practices, we can have this distribution of plantation crops, rather more localized in comparison to other agricultural crops. When plantation crops like bananas, like this Kerala crops like coconut trees, and like your what I can say, that is the coffee plants. So these are plantation crops which we can have by means of this remote sensing satellite images that GIS. Now in this case, identification and estimation of growing stock or the monitoring of regular intervals can help us in plantation crops in a better way by using this satellite images. So crop nutrient deficiency also can be detected. So depending upon their color, moisture content, internal structures of leaves, and as a result, the reflecting values will be changing. So from that we can analyze what is the crop nutrient deficiency that is there in the crop, so that we can give proper crop condition. These physiological changes that occur in a plant particular crop can also be studied depending upon the spectral reflectance and emittance characteristics. So within that, once you know these things, what is the probable type of loss in the production, that can also be assessed using this, and also what type of crop growth will be there, so that also can be estimated by using this crop condition assessment. Now, crop field monitoring, modeling, and production forecasting also can be we can have in this years. The information on production of crops before the harvest is very vital, and to this policy, national food policy planning and all those things, we use that. Crop reliable crop yield estimates also one of the important components which can also done using GIS sort of thing. And also pest management, agriculture drought assessment, temporal data for irrigation studies, and reflectance modeling can also be done using these GIS. In the pest management, I said that integrated pest management can also be done. So methodologies we devise, or agricultural scientists they devise, and that can be perfected for identification locust breeding grounds or based on vegetation or moisture status. So thereby we can develop the strategies to prevent their spreads and effect these control measures. We can have this crop dust and all that thing. And drought assessment also we can have beforehand using this NDVI values, using NOAA data. NOAA, there are 1, 2 to 20 satellites and all that. We can have NOAA data, that is AVHR data. AVHR means advanced, very high rudimentary resolution data. So that can be used from the NOAA satellite, and also can be used for the drought assessment beforehand, before this thing. Then temporal data means time data for irrigation studies, when this irrigation scheduling is done. So depending upon this temperature, moisture in the soil, once you tensiometer, using tensiometer, that this instrument which is put in the soil, that is called tensiometer. From tensiometer, you can remotely take the ideas of how much depth of moisture is there in the field. So using that field, using automation sort of thing, we can have this temporal data. At what date we should apply the irrigation to the field, so that this tensiometer will give us the idea. So tensiometer in turn, coupled with this GPS and coupled with this robotics or automation, artificial intelligence can help you to give this scheduling practices in that. And also depending upon the reflectance modeling, we have, as I said earlier, we have reliable yield production, growth of crops. So these things can be studied beforehand, and the solar radiation, temperature, water, and nutrient availability can also study. At the same time, we can give the solution to these crops for effectively utilizing the information, for effectively getting these benefits, for effectively getting this yields, and we can develop a state or district level income system or basin sub-basin level income system, so that GIS can help us to get these crops in a better way, in a beneficial way, and a better yields. So the most important part in making a subfield in GIS is that if you have a bigger field of 100 hectares, we make it into smaller field artificially. And in artificially, once you make the smaller field in GIS, so that helps us take the ideas of management better, and this will allow our more precise and accurate decision making practices in agriculture management. Farmers also are able to make decisions based on information, and this GIS can help us better which field is to be attacked by some of the management practices, and this is better in the GIS field. Variability also we can study in spatial variability, temporal variability we can also study using GIS. What is variability? So variability means this texture, topography, plant vigor, pest populations, and the moisture content, soil fertility. Those things can be studied. So that in terms of space, in terms of temporal or time. Space means, so which area of the crop field is having what soil composition, what is the crop yield there, and what will be the insect population over there, or what will the environmental characteristics over distance and depth can be studied using spatial variability using GIS. Using temporal variability, we can have for the precision agriculture that what type of spatial variability that is the driving force, but at the same time we can have the temporal variability of that crop using this GIS in precision agriculture. Without variability, we may not be able to do that justice to the crops to give more yield. So we need to have this. So we allow GIS to have analysis for us, so that a particular subfield can be attacked and can be given the treatment using this GIS data analysis. Okay. So two variabilities, that is spatial and temporal variability, can be studied using GIS remote sensing. Say for example, efficiency, another part. What happened earlier in the conventional methods in the past, it was difficult for farmers to correlate between the techniques, production techniques and profits, because they just sowed the crops and they did not know how much it would be there. So they were just depending upon this Indra god, so to say, the rain god, so that how much rain will be there, how much crop will be there. But nowadays that has done. So now we have more precise applications of pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers, and we can control better this dispersion of the chemicals and fertilizers through the precision agriculture. Or nowadays the hydroponics has come up. People are growing better crops using hydroponics and all that. So these can reduce our expenses and produce high yields and create more environmentally friendly farms and all that. We can have more farm management efficiency. So which can produce this precision agriculture technology for a betterment sort of thing, and we can have better decision making efficiency for these crops, and which crop will give high returns, we can judge that, and so that we can have variable also fertilizers and chemicals to the fields, and we can have the better management practices using this GIS with advanced technologies. Now if we see this early detection of crop stress or plant stress, we have good growth stage and poor growth stage. So the soils can be mapped using these color composites using satellite. This is a radar satellite of Canada. So radar satellite or any type of satellite that can give the ideas, because radar satellites have 7 windows. Within 7 windows, starting from 50 meters to 500 meters, this spatial resolution, we can have this color composites, and from color composites we can analyze in GIS, and we can have the poor growth where the soil is shown by the satellite images, and we can have this no soil growth also in this good growth conditions. So those things can be analyzed through the signature collection by this satellite images, so that we can detect this early plant stress, so that we can calculate those things. So now in this figure we are seeing this healthy vegetation, we are seeing this crop stressed vegetation, we are seeing this severely stressed vegetation. So these curves, reflectance curves, so reflectance curves can give you idea about which crop is your severely stressed or healthy green vegetation, or which is fertilizer needed crops, which is fertilizer not needed crops. So in the aerial NDVI image, you can calculate this yellow portion that shows that fertilizer needed there because the crop is dying over there. And this green part, we can have this healthy vegetation, so you don't have any fertilizer need. So those things can be studied by these remote images to calculate the NDVI images, and further your management practices can be applied over there. And this saline stress, whenever you just plow your fields, grow your crops and all those things, that becomes saline after some time. The salts in soils and irrigation water can be judged from this saline point of view. And remedial solutions that we can map after mapping the effect areas, and we can put in there. So once you do that, the surface reflectances factors and other the detection factors we can judge, and also from the canopy temperature once it's exposed to excessive salts and irrigation, all those things. So that will give you idea that the salt, this crop area is in under saline stress. So we need to have a better quality water. So because of quality water, the saline causes, or because of groundwater sources, the sunlight also stress is there. So these things, the leaching practices can be managed over there once you have the saline stress using the satellite images from the crop areas. Also pest monitoring. So now we can have this hyperspectral reflectance factors. We can have hyperspectral reflectance factors for this normal growth of certain type of crops, and also we can have some particularly type of white flies or some other insects. Those are eating over the plant and all that. So this is just showing one this cotton area of Maharashtra where you can have this insecticides, insects which are eating over the plants and all that. And once you have that, we have a spectroradiometer which is connected to GIS images after studying that. Also, we have this solar radiation studies which can be done by this remote sensing and all that. Once you have that, then you can study this type of patterns of this pest monitoring in the field, so that pest control can be done. We can have proper management practices over there. Also, we have this crop vigor indices from satellite images. Left side, you are seeing the images, that is the satellite image for crop vigor stress. And we can have this high vigors, low vigors, medium vigors, depending on the scale modification of that. And from that crop vigor, we can identify which type of crop, so which crop is subjected to this high vigor or high stress of crop. So accordingly, we can take this manual practice over there. Then coming to precision farming means what? So precision farming means is a precision, as the term says, is a better sort of thing or that. So precision agriculture, precision farming. So this is known as also satellite farming, or it's known as a site-specific crop management, or SSCM it is also called. This is a farming management concept based on observing, measuring, and responding to inter and intra-field variability in crops. So that is what precision farming is. Precision farming means we use GIS, we use GPS, we use robotics, we use other mechanized farm machineries, so that we can have this better agriculture in that. So this is what? This is an information and technology-based farm management which identifies, analyzes, and manages variability in fields by conducting crop production practices at the right place, at the right time, and the right way. And that is for optimum profitability, sustainability, and protection of land resources. That is what is farm management. At stages of agriculture, so that can be optimized with precision farming. There are many things. So what can be done through precision farming? So as I said, precision farming is that. So that is application of your technology and GPS, GIS to the conventional farming to improve the practices. So what it does, this increases your return on investment ROI by reducing the input uses, increasing yield and quality, and also this reduces soil, water, and air pollution by decreasing uses, chemical fertilizer and all that, builds up soil biodiversity, and make the farm sustainable by reducing the lengths of resources in water. And now also this without water crops are coming up, so this helps in that also. This also helps in carbon emissions reduction from the agriculture sector. And also what it does, it increases the soil sampling placement techniques. This also helps in replanting, scouting, irrigating, fertilizing, pest, weed and disease control sort of thing, planning, harvesting, logistics, post-season benchmark, this sort of thing also done by this. Now, we can have also decision support system in precision farming using GIS. Now we have identified the problems, spatial reference data collection from these fields, and we have this map preparations. We can do that, then put it to GIS and GPS maps. And from identification of this spatially reference data collection, so we can have this approved solutions, manual practice over there, and apply the solution for the correction. And from that also we can have sampling persons maps, and this idea we can have this data analysis and decision makings. And from that we can have expert systems, linear programming, modeling, statistical economic analysis, and from after applying the solutions to the correction, we can go for treatment reports and maps, and you can have this variable rate technology drivers, so that you can have better analysis. In GIS, what you have? You have different condition maps. We have different maps. We have Indian maps. So there we analyze. If this condition prevails, then that condition will take. That means evaluates relationships based on this map information you have from this spatial modeling. From the spatial modeling, what information you have, put that in modeling system, and depending upon the dependent and independent variables, you derive relationship. If soil condition is better, then apply less fertilizer. If crop figure is more, apply some sort of management techniques. So these type of things can be we can have. So in the precision farming using this GIS and artificial intelligence sort of thing and other type of modeling. So now in the precision farming, what can be done? We have data logging, we have point sampling, we have spatial modeling, we have data analysis. Finally, we go for manual practices. Now in the data logging, what you have? When accurate measurements of GPS position can be done in data logging, then material flow adjustments are measure constants over there, and positioning are different. The coordinates are also accurate to about a meter or maybe less than that. And however, this paired measurements is for a location well behind the harvester. It takes several seconds for material to pass from the point to the harvester for the yield monitoring. So data logging means collecting all the data to the system, and GPS does that and GIS does that, and we can have data logging. And at the faster speed, then after data logging, we go for analysis. In the analysis part, what you do? These the statistical techniques which are traditional. So these are to be attempted to. For example, regression analysis of field plots have been used for years to derive crop production. So that has to be taken back and use GIS, so that we can use the regression model in this ANN or other map variables, such as we can have this field, any type of fields, rice field or corn field or cotton field, and thousands of samples of plots can be analyzed using GIS and very short time. Now, if with this dynamic regional plans, suppose in crop vast area, you want to have a regional plans which is dynamic every year, that is to change. We have 5 things in your hand. That is spatial data, the digital maps you have weather maps from IMD, you have land use map from NBSS Nagpur, you have hydrography map, you have soil map from NBSS Nagpur, paste also there, and also land use maps can be got from NRS Hyderabad, and soil maps can be got from NBSS Nagpur, National Bureau of Soil Survey Nagpur. Then socioeconomic maps you can get it from your statistics department, from the agriculture or your district administration. And you have input attribute database. You have soil, weather, crop, different practices followed there in the area. You have pests, your economic values and hydrology, those things you have. And models analysis, you have so many models. N number of models are available there. You can have crop models, you can have SWOT model, you can have soil models, you can have hydrology models, you can have strategic evaluation models, you can have this agriculture models and economic models. And we have different expert systems also. And we have simulation packages also. Putting all together, you just define one design pattern and develop one strategy, and management decisions can be derived from that. Once we have that, we can prepare reports and graphs, and for regional scale reports, graphs and maps, we have our regional plans for the particular area, for the particular crop, for particular farmers. What else applications can we have in this precision agriculture in using GPS, by using GPS and GIS? We have our GPS guidance and auto steer. So this drones, how it can be steered using the GPS guidance. Then we can have the section control on the sprayers for spraying the dust or pesticides and insecticides. And we can also row control for planters. While planting these seeds, planting the plants, we can have the row control and also direction control. And then we can have yield monitoring, we can have field sensing, and we can have data management. At the same time, we can have variable rate applications depending upon the type of crops grown and figures. So variable rate application means somewhere it will be more applied, somewhere it less applied. So these things can be also done using drone survey, using the GIS and artificial intelligence. At the same time, also you can have telematics and robotics applied to GIS, applied to fields using also GIS. Satellite imagery we have aerial photometry, we have electrical conductivity, which is measured by this periodic test. We have infrared infield reflections. We have chlorophyll meters, also chlorophyll can be measured with satellite images. Then crop height monitoring by physical verification fields can also monitor, and remotely and infield sensing also you can have using the satellite images and using this mechanized farming sort of thing in the agriculture fields. Now sensor field operations also can have using the remote sensor thing. We can have this NDVI values. From the NDVI values, you can compare the NDVI values to optimum area data, and from optimum values of NDVI, you can have the rate determination. That means how much area will be this rate controller, means any type of spray sort of thing, rate control can be there. We can activate that using the actuator, and also at the same time also the growing degree days we can calculate, and what was the potential yield from the crop, that also can be identified, that can also analyze, that can also investigated. And we have the crop sensors, different crop sensors available in the market, using crop sensors in this robot or using these crop sensors in these drones. We can have this idea about this potential yield and other things in hand. So now in the precision agriculture, use this GIS so that the tracking, this plowing, this sowing, this planting can be done using this GIS and satellite images. Are using this tractor planted with mounted with one GPS. So the tractor moves for sowing purposes, for plowing purposes, for other purposes, can be useful in deriving satellite tracking system, GPS system, so that it can be traced, it can be utilized, it can be used in the managing these seeding processes and in plowing fields, in putting other sorts of usefulness by automated sort of thing. So this GIS and remote sensing helps in a lot in this precision agriculture. At the same time also we have the planters, air seeders as I told. We have different machines as you see this. So see this crop patterns. In this, once you see the crop patterns over here, different types of crop patterns crop seeding patterns or crop plantation patterns we can have in the field depending upon this planters and air seeders. The planters uses the GPS satellite, GPS, and from the GPS either GNSS or from Compass or from this other satellite GPS satellites, we can use this data and you can have these planters and air seeders so that they can have a different types of seeding or planting. So in the top figure, you can see this small plants. In the below figure, you can see the same plants are grown up to the higher stages. So that this has been done using GPS technologies, and how this waterways can be controlled also this can be done using GPS and GIS. And the spraying technology also we have the sprayers. So the boom height control, boom means where it is sprayed, the boom height can control using GPS, and also this nozzle control can be done depending on the type of crop you have. You have the nozzle flow control, you have droplet size control, and from the GIS maps, you are seeing the right side GIS maps. So which field will be control applied with this spraying technology, that something can be analyzed in the field, and which areas are to be, or which row or columns or which lines can be sprayed can be also studied in the laboratory or in the office by using GIS. Also, variable rate fertilization can be studied using remote sensing images. So the fertilizer seed or variety of seeds, we can delineate the uniform areas. Suppose red areas are can be delineated, and yellow areas can be delineated. And these, what are the type of area, what is the size of area, what those things can be also delineated. Now we can use LiDAR technology in this. This is part of your remote sensing. Also, you can have that. We can have telematics. Telematics, nothing but the implementation of GPS in the machines. So we can have this remote sensing diagnostics combined with the tracing efficiency and machine locations. And one location at the computer center in your office or your farmland control room can control these machines at a time. Different n number of machines can control using GPS and GIS, so that you can have the control over this farm. So this is used particularly in mechanized farming, but GIS can help in those things using the telematics, and GIS can help you to identify the machines and to give this idea about that. And robotics also nowadays, it has come in a big way. It has some parts of Tamil also, you see some areas I have seen the robotics they have put in practice for this mechanical weeding and autonomous tractors. There's chemical application in some of the farms they're using now. So GPS and robotics go hand in hand to give the idea about better management sort of thing and implement this better management sort of in the fields. And remote sensing and precision farming, we have like this map. So here we have this global satellites, GPS satellites. We have this crop sensing sort of thing. We have digital elevation maps, DMs. We have yield maps. We have clustering methods. We have high resolution sensor maps. So all these things combined together, we can have this calibration sites. After soil sampling in the laboratory analysis, we can have like interoperated thematic maps, we can have management zone maps, we can have temporal data. So remote sensing can be utilized in any farm in precision farming or also in normal conventional farming also. You can put remote sensing and GIS to a major way. Crop acreage, how to find the crop acreage, how much crop can be planted, how to see that. There are two factors, R1 and R2. So which the crop planting proportion can calculate R1 and R2 can calculate using GIS remote sensing packages. So planting structure zoning we first plan. The remote sensing data we have cluster sampling, we have transect line sampling, we have sampling systems, any type of GBG or any type of green vegetation. Green GB means green vegetation type of coverage. You can have variable acreage, you can have R1, R2 calculation using some formula, and planting acreage of crop species can be also calculated using remote sensing. Crop acreage we generally calculate, that is crop variable into R1 and R1 and R2. We have different formula you can calculate. Once you know this R1, R2, then crop variable into R1 and R2, that will be the acreage. So remote sensing data, so that planted proportion on the arable land and transect line sampling, we can have crop type proportion on the planted arable land. Merging together, we can have this acreage that is in the R1 and R2. Now this is R1 formula. I don't have to discuss these things because this is a long lecture. Here you can calculate this NDFI and the soil adjusted vegetation data SAVI. Using this NDFI and SAVI, so we can have this calculation for the geometric remote sensing images for the crops, and you can have labeling sort of thing. So this will give you the idea about calculation of the plant, crop planting proportion, that is R1. So from this area, radar data we have optical data. Any data you take from that, we have your geometric corrections. We calculate this mosaic, then non-arable marks we remove, then we have this classifications. After that, you put that NDFI, SAVI, and arable land sort of thing, and finally you calculate this. What are the area which is having R1 values like this. Similarly, also in R2 values you can calculate. So this I'm not going to discuss much. So here we can calculate area in meter square. We can calculate that is number of pixels of clusters into resolution of the image. Suppose 30 meter resolution is there. So 30 into 30 into number of pixels. Let's suppose 1 million pixels. So 1 million into 30 into 30, that will give you the area in meter square. Then convert it into kilometer square or hectares. So then production estimation, we can have that. Predicted yield you have through remote sensing, we can have the estimated acreage. So once estimate acreage and predicted yield you can multiply, that will give the production estimation. So this type of estimation is generally used by the agriculture department to have yield different. That means forecast of yields. So sometimes you would see the news that this much rice will be produced in this area this year. So before 2 months or 1 month, they tell you that this much yield will be there in the area. So this is the way how they calculate using remote sensing GIS for the agriculture crops. Now we have GIS Panorama Agro. The name of the GIS software is GIS Panorama Agro. You can download from this site, which is free. And after having that, you can have this agriculture technology management using GIS Panorama Agro. And you have planning and accounting, you have processing of measurement results, you have maintenance of field passports, and you have this control of the state equipment and collection of navigation data, visualization in the real time. So this uses GIS and your agriculture field data so that you can have farmland monitoring, you can have soil fertility, you can have agro management, you can have land banking sort of thing, and control of agriculture equipment. Those sort of things can be together operated, used, analyzed using this software called GIS Panorama Agro, right? Now, one of the things I'm showing you that land use changes, suppose from 2002 to 2025 I have taken. So the GIS maps one put in the modeling system that will show these changes in land use patterns, changes in this crop pattern, changes in this bigger patterns, changes in this image patterns. So this land use changes also can be studied over the years of time, maybe 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, so that you can have idea that how these plants have changed over the years to give you more or less of crops. So this is a modeling technique using this agro Panorama Agro. So using that I did this modeling. So this modeling is useful for you to have the something ideas for land use and all that. Okay. So now coming, this is part of agriculture. Now coming to that natural environment sort of things. So I have certain things for you. So this is like irrigation suitability of orange crops, other cottons. We did it in paddy catchment area, and some of my MTech students did. Sorry, MTech or PhD, I don't remember exactly. So we did it for this paddy catchment area. We had this processes I'm not telling you, but because that takes time. So here you can find out which is suitable, which is not suitable, which is marginal suitable, or which is very suitable for the crops. So for orange, for cotton, we had this study in the Maharashtra area. Likewise, also you can have this in river-based management. We generally use DPRs, cross-section of these rivers. We use this GIS river sensing to have 3D maps for the reservoirs which are not been done. This is a reservoir called Incham Reservoir here. Incham Reservoir is not built, but still it is on Godavari River. That is just 50 kilometers upstream side of the Tupakalgodam barrage, which has been constructed. And in this Inchampal barrage, you can have beforehand what are the roads to be put in, how much area will be irrigated by end-node irrigation. I am talking of the DPR preparations. In the DPR preparation, use these maps, and also what volume this reservoir can have, and what the aerial coverage, what is the submersion sort of thing that can be estimated beforehand, before this project is on. Before the project implemented, we can plan this. So in this, we can have this FRL contour from GIS. From FR control also you can have how much FR will be there in the dam or barrage or whatever it is. So depend how much forest area will be inundated, how much total area will be submersible inundated, how much village will be around. Those things can be also have. Also we can have this ideal site selection for the dam from this is capacity estimation of dam also can be used to by using GIS. We had this like environment management. We do that terminal reservoir sediment selection. So this is Maithan. I did it a long back, maybe in 2001. Here we had the images for different dates. We use the images to find out what is the life storage of the particular reservoir that you use. Also, sometimes it's a free GIS called Anuva GIS. We use this is for seeking the entire area. So here we this is a free package in GIS you can use. So right side in the beach, see that in the some beach how it's siltation takes place, how this sedimentation takes place, erosion takes place, that can be studied. And also we have the Kinneras package, which is field level. We just go for automated geospatial water analysis. So how much change in surface runoff, how much change in this sediment pattern, how much change in other things can be studied using GIS also. Okay, we use SWOT sometimes for land and soil slopes. We have also coupled with this hydrology crop with nutrient cycling. We use this routing of plot sediment nutrients in GIS. So that is for the water analysis. We have also river-based responses using the SWOT manual techniques. And sometimes we use this soil erosion Australia method. This is the Australia method used. In this, we use for Khadavas water set. Some of my PhD students did in her PhD thesis. So here we can have this C factor, K factor, R factor, P factor, and LS factors. So that finally you can find out what the rate of erosion from this water side or water side, and we can have this low to high map, so that we can calculate how much sediment will be eroded from this water sets or water set. Okay, we can have also soil maps, we can have geology maps, we can have this runoff potential maps, we can have hydrogeomorphology maps and slope maps and runoff maps and other things. Combining together all those things, what we do, we can go for this groundwater prospect mapping. In this groundwater prospect mapping, we can say that where this moderate or good or excellent groundwater zones are available. That means at what depth water is available in the ground water areas. So without going to the groundwater sort of thing, we can validate with this geophysical exploration, and we can prepare map referent using those maps earlier. One of my PhD students did all many things in this, so that was what I'm showing here. So here also we can have rainwater harvesting structures in one of the water sets where we can have the rainwater harvesters like gully plugs where we can have or existed, or gully plugs where we want to put, or percolation tanks where to put, farm pumps or check dams where to put in the streams. That also can be studied using GIS remote sensing. This is a part of environmental use of GIS. I'm just showing you few parts. Other things I won't show now. Also, we have this potential discharge zones of maps. So in this well data, you have the groundwater wells. So we have field investigated data. We have this using different methods. Ideal means we are using the inverse distance method, Watters method. So interpolation method used and the piezometric heads to calculate. Once you calculate the piezometric heads, we can prepare the potential discharge zones map. To which area can give us how much discharge from the groundwater. That also can be hard using the DMs and remote sensing and GIS applications. And also we can have the surface water groundwater interactions using this MIXI software. This is in case of MIXI. So actually we have used this MIXI software to have that hydrologic relationship between surface water and the aquifer based on spatial analysis. So GIS helps in using this environmental analysis in these ways. So MIXI is a package also used in Hydro, and Hydro package also use this 2D based modeling. We use there also. So one of these glimpses or one of these snapshots I'm showing to you, because one slide takes at least one complete day of explaining those things, which is a big package. Likewise, this is one of these packages we have done long back. One of my students, Mr. Solanki, developed this package, morphometric analysis of streams. Here you can get the stream frequency, biofrequency, drainage density, form vectors. All these factors were studied in BTech level or MTech level. So these ratios can be calculated instantly within 1 minute time. So putting one GIS DM. So that will this has been done for Krishna Basin. Calculate that and you can get the results instantly. So this is one of the packages called MAS package we have developed. So we developed under my guidance. So this is also another thing, that's waste disposal sites. In this Pune Municipal Corporation, we had this technology of GIS where we applied. So we have this where to dispose the waste. That also can be studied using GIS having different layers and thematic. This is river tools. Here river tools can give you idea about the subwater analysis or water analysis by river streams network, or all these parameters of these rivers can be extracted by this rivers the GIS. And this is a package called River Tools. It's not free package, free of cost. It's a less costly package, around 30,000 rupees. So you can buy it and have it. Also, demo is available on net. You can try it. How and why and where and which parameters can be analyzed. Also, another package is called Basin 4, where you can use the basin maps for sedimentation for your pervious and impervious land segments. That is cropping patterns and this management of things. These things can be used using Basin 4. It's a free package which is used using GIS. So there are many packages, but I'm showing few things because time is short for you. Within 2 hours, it's possible to show all the things. Also, we can have this analytical hierarchy processes, that is ASP. You can use this ASP package available on net, either your Excel packages in ASP form, or you can have this super decision model. One of the super decision model is there available on net, which is not free, but you can download demo packages. We use that is for Pimpri-Chinchwad Municipal Corporation area. We have different 47 parameters over there. Taking the 47 parameters, all the environmental setup analyzed. That is, we have NDY, we have soil brightness index, we have slope map, we have drainage density, form factors, land use, land cover factors, land cost, slope, elevation, surface water, ATM facilities, market facilities, schools, then houses, touch houses. So likewise, we heard about this ERM, environmental, this factors, environmental factors, social factors, all the factors can be taken together criteria, and we can have this project was to find out the suitability for this real estate. So one builder came to us that he wanted to have this real estate development over there, land use suitability. So this is a project by Pune Chinchwad Municipal Corporation actually implemented. We analyzed and implemented. This is one of my students, Dr. Patil, B.D. Patil. He started in his PhD thesis, he did it. So in this case, we can have this. Below we are seeing this Brahmani Baitarani Basin study for e-water package, software package, which is pre-level with e-water Australia. I did it in Basin Planning Directorate of Institutes New Delhi. So here we had this Brahmani Baitarani Basin analyzed for multi-optimization sort of thing using this technique of e-water using GIS and all those things. So in this Pimpri Chinchwad Municipal Corporation, we had this unsuitable, less suitable, suitable, or very suitable, or extraordinary suitable areas for these builders to come up to take up this real estate sort of thing. And in Brahman Baitarani Basin in Odisha, so we had these studies for this integrated IDWR, that is integrated water source management practices. Particularly, we had this basin planning sort of thing with this e-water using this GIS sort of thing. So likewise, we can have many of these links, nodes, and GIS elements which can be put together, remote elements put together, so that we can put it in either in basin planning, either in integrated water source management, or in agriculture, or in planning of anything. Now in DPR preparation, which I'm looking at here as chief engineer of the South region, here I have 8 states under my jurisdiction. Under the 8 states, we have many projects up there. We have 16 this DPR interested links. In the 16 interested, we have major projects like Godavari, Krishna, this Pennar, Kaveri. The 3 links we have completed last in 2019. In the DPRs also we have completed DEG links, Daman Ganga, Ekdare, then Godavari, Daman Ganga, Baitarana Godavari, and recently we have completed. We are going to complete in this month. That is Berthi Barda DPR. We also completed that Kaveri, Baigai, Gundar links. So all these links, why I'm talking about in this, all the links we had the drone surveys. This is a must. Using the drone surveys and satellite images, what we do, you go for contour plans. After doing contour plans, we derive these command areas, and after having command areas and contour plans, we have the cross sections, longitudinal sections, and using those things, we can identify which are the agriculture areas differently, what are the command area differently, that is agriculture area, and which can be commandable, which cannot be commandable, and how these links can be going through these areas to the endpoint. That means starting from Godavari in Inchampalli, we are taken to Grand Anicut in Tamil Nadu. From Inchampalli to Grand Anicut about 512 kilometers. Sorry, 1240 kilometers. So this 1200 kilometers, how we can take the tunnels or canals or there's some other structures in between. How we can take, which route we should take, so that we use GIS in preparation DPR, and many efforts for this feasibility reports also we prepared using this GIS. So what I meant to say that GIS is everywhere. GIS can be used everywhere in all practical lives of civil engineering, agricultural engineering, or agricultural practices, to have the gainful solutions, to have the benefits, and to have more production, to have many things about that, right? So this is what that ends my lecture here, because I took more of a time, maybe 10-15 minutes more. So now you can ask me questions so that I can tell you my answers, right? So thank you very much. Thank you for your patient hearing. And once again, I thank all the organizers, your university, your participant, faculty, your practicing engineers, and all that, so that they heard this lecture patiently. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this very informative talk. And I hope the participants must have noted down the different tools that can be used in the area of agriculture, rather the various GIS tools that can be used in the area of agriculture. Okay, so I would like to encourage the participants to ask any queries that they are having. So I'm just allowing their mics. So the participants can please, their mics are allowed. So the participants can please unmute themselves and please interact with Dr. Shankwa. Or if you want to put your queries in the chat box, that is also fine. Sir, your video was coming, but now I think I cannot see the video now.
Video is visible now. I'm showing. I'm showing video. Just transfer. Is visible?
Sir, I think there is something.
Yeah, now it's visible. Yeah, it's
okay.
Just one sec. I'm clicking so much here. Is visible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is visible now. Thank you.
It is now visual, sir, completely.
Yeah. First thing, was the lecture clear to all the participants? Hello.
Yes, dear participants, please feel free to unmute yourself and interact with Dr. Shankwa.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I'm new to this GIS technology, GIS. Actually, when I'm a research scholar, I wanted to do some classification on this agricultural side. That is, if you are choosing a certain locality, we'll have different types of crops growing,
Yes.
right? How can we classify those crops?
See what you can do. Your question is over now. So what you can do, you can have a higher resolution map, like your higher list 4. If you are new to this GIS, you can have minimum list 4 map, because list 3 having 23 resolution cannot do that. So list 4 map, if you are learning first time, list 4 maps are available from net also you can get. Older data you can choose, or else there are many sites which are freely available for your data sets. That is your Geo Explorer. You can find USGS Explorer. Just freely log into that. You can have Landsat data available over there. Download one set of Landsat data for your area. After downloading that, crop it to the required sizes of the fields. After doing that, what you do, use supervised classification. First, learn with the unsupervised classification. After doing that, go for supervised classification. In the supervised classification, unsupervised classification, what you do? Automatically, this computer will classify for your data. But when you use the supervised classification, you have to go to the field and collect some samples. Samples in the sense that you see that suppose the area is 100 hectares, say, in this 100 hectares area, you have certain area having rice as a crop. So you see with that area, using your handheld GPS or your mobile phone also, that can be used. So there, take the photograph. So taking the photograph, likewise 10, 11 areas, you can take the photograph, having the latitude, longitudes, come to this office or your university. There, the signatures of those areas give to the computer in classification, supervised classification. After giving this classification, automatically the super classification will classify you into different classes of your crops. That is, maybe it's rice, maybe wheat, maybe your other crops, maybe your vegetable crops or soybean crops. All the crops giving different signatures, because whatever number of crops are there, you need to classify you need to take the signatures of those areas, small areas. So these signatures should fit into system in GIS. So the remote sensing particularly in ADAS imaging you are doing, or in NV you are doing, or in other software packages you are doing. So that will help you. If you are doing ADAS, so you can directly this thing, or if you are using NV, you can use that also, because NV is a package of GIS and remote sensing, but ADAS is a package of only remote sensing, and ArcInfo or your ArcGIS is a package only for GIS, because raster analysis are not done over there, because you are taking this analysis as vector and raster combinations. So most of this image analysis are done by ADAS. So you can give this data, and that will automatically classify it for you. And then you go for accuracy assessment. Whatever you have done in the field, in the laboratory, whether that is accurate or not. So they will be giving out some statistics. So depending upon the statistics of this area you have analyzed, so you can judge your own work. So nobody there to judge you. So you can judge your own work. Your column accuracy, your producer accuracy, your diagram accuracy, overall accuracy can be also got from this remote sensing analysis packages. That is supervised classification. Okay. So if you want to learn these things, you can download this sites, your super classification, that will tell you how to do that and all those things. If you want details of that, you can take my lecture notes also, or any volume of remote sensing trainings I have imparted in NW Pune, National Water Academy Pune. I have more than 12 this training programs I conducted there. So you can have the booklets which are downloadable free of cost. You can get that. So then you can know the process. Otherwise, you can purchase my book, that is called Practical Applications of GIS in Water Sources. So from that also you can learn how to do that. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir, for the detailed response. I hope that Jamila, I think she also inquired about this yesterday. I hope that she have got the answer. Thank you so much. So any further queries? You can also type in your queries in the comment box. So is this list4 data also available, freely available in any platform? List4 data?
List4 data freely is not available, but you can request sites like Google platform. You can get list4 data. Google platform just registered in some data of list4 or that some part of data or equivalent data also available over there. Question chart is available there. Resource chart is available over there. Mainly resource chart one, they are making it free some part of this, but old data. If you want to learn that, then old data is enough. But if you want to go for recent analysis, then you need to purchase that. One cost of one data scene is about 600 rupees to 700 rupees. If you want to learn that, this is data set like USGS Explorer, that can be that data type would Landsat, TM or Landsat. Okay, ETM plus or ETM data. ETM plus means is 50 meter resolution. Like ETM TM data, that's 30 meter resolution. That's enough. So that you can get. If for learning purpose you are doing that, then your geo scope is better. Otherwise, not really available. So that may serve the purpose, because in NRSC depends on the revenue.
Okay, right, sir. So for downloading the data from the Indian satellites, that Bhuvan portal is option.
Yeah, Bhuvan portal you can download for Indian data sets, and if you want to have this Landsat, you can go for this Geo Explorer. There are three types of sites. One I am telling, that is GLCF. One is GDM, Global, DM. There you can download DM. And GLCF, that is Global Land Cover Facility, is the best one out of all. So that you can download. Or else you can download from SRTM. SRTM will remove the subtle images, at the same time also it gives this images of certain parts. Certain parts of images are not available in these areas, but the GLCF gives areas of all the area, but 1 year old data. So that you can go for. Or else if you want to go for this Bhuvan, you can get again same 1 or 1.5 years old data. So these things, it depends upon what is the scope of work and what you want to do.
Thank you so much for the information, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, any further queries?
Hello. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, please.
Shankar sir, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Dr. Sagar Mali sir. I'm your student in year 2013. I learned watershed modeling techniques from you when you was in NWA, Pune.
Achha. Okay.
So I completed my PhD from Shivaji University, Kolhapur, sir. And right now I'm working in Goa.
What's your name?
In watershed modeling, sir.
What's your name?
Dr. Sagar Mali, sir. You might know, sir. Dr. Sagar Mali. I learned.
Yes, Sagar Mali.
Yeah. Sir, right now I'm in Goa, sir, assistant professor. My simple question is, sir, sometimes the farmers do the mixed crop farming.
Yes.
Means one crop, they are taking the multiple.
That is difficult by optical remote sensing. You need to go for hyperspectral. In that case, when it is mixed farm, let's suppose corn and rice, they are growing together. Okay. Yes. In that case, classification becomes difficult for you. In that case, you need to go for hyperspectral. Okay.
Okay, so can we quantify and classify also? And can we classify?
Yes, hyperspectral you can classify, because hyperspectral works on micro generation planning. So micro thing, hyperspectral can do that. That's a new technique again altogether. This is not like optical remote sensing, because hyperspectral, what it does, it slices this images into 242. Okay, so one part can be sliced into in meter form, 1 meter form. So in the big area can be sliced into small forms. So the hyperspectral imaging can be put to there. So their mixed farming cannot be identified using the optical sensors. That's difficult. It can be,
sir.
But that is difficult. So for that, you have to resort to this hyperspectral remote sensing.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay. Nice to see you, sir, after a long time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sagar, for your query.
Other queries, please. Other queries, please. Any questions further? Dr. Upreti, any questions further anyone is asking?
No, sir, I cannot see anything in the chat box. So I
Okay.
think there are no further queries.
Okay.
So I think we can wait for a minute or so to
Yes,
see
no
if there
problem.
are any further.
Yes. Gopal is available on net. No,
Okay.
yes, I'm seeing that. Okay, good. Okay. Because GIS is a vast topic, so this GIS particularly I have more than 160 lectures. Okay. Out of 160 lectures, I have picked up the basic one. The basic one is from that 350 slides I got. So that I'm just putting to you only. If you put GIS, advanced GIS, that will be very hard. Very hard in the sense that requires your face-to-face interaction, because in online platform that is difficult to deliver this advanced package like hyperspectral or like LIDAR remote sensing. So that becomes difficult because that requires practical hands-on practice. Then only one can learn this GIS from hyperspectral or this MATLAB or Python programming with that. So that will be difficult for that. So this is just basics part of that. So where I could give few things on agriculture related. Okay.
So, sir, I think there are no further queries.
Okay.
And thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. I think I learned a lot about the various GIS tools that are available there for that we can use in the area of in the area of agriculture.
Thank you very
thank
much.
you so much.
Was it audible? Was it audible clearly?
Yes, sir. It was perfectly audible. Yes.
Because I showed about 90 slides out of 90 slides because I have 1.5 hours. I have to 90 slides, so I was a bit fast. Okay. My natural frequency is fast. Gopal ji knows it.
Yeah, I know very well, sir. That thing.
So, anyway.
So, sir, can you please share your slides, sir?
Yes, I'll send it to your mail.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send it.
So I will
except
share
that video
that
because video cannot send that is some GB. Leaving that video, I'll send it to your mail. Okay.
Yeah.